Random thoughts. In this video, we are going to talk about how the Oromo people established one of the most advanced republic systems. In the world, there exist three primary types of governments, and that is the republic, democracy, and monarchy. Just think of any government anywhere in the world, it has to fit one of these three. Now, each of these three, of course, has advantages and disadvantages. The republic has its own advantages and disadvantages. The monarchy has its own advantages and disadvantages. And of course, democracy has its own advantages and disadvantages. Now, in the modern world, there seems to be this movement towards democracy, and democracy is portrayed as this is the most advanced form of government, or is the one with the least weaknesses. But I don't agree. And in fact, if I'm going to grade them, personally, I think the republic is the best or scores the highest. I think that democracy is a quick fix for human governance issues, but it also has a major weakness that it can be hijacked by cons. You can just look anywhere in the world where democracy is running, and you realize that it's so easy for cons to hijack democracy through money and through other ways. So I think that's the biggest weakness for democracy. And for monarchy, the only issue I have with monarchy is too much centralization of power into the hands of an individual or a family. That's the major issue I have with monarchy. Now, when it comes to the republic has decentralization of power. And at the same time, if a republic is done very well, like what the Oromo have, then there is less chance of it being hijacked by cons. Now, I've spent a long time studying the ancient Roman Republic, and many people, of course, say that the ancient Roman Republic perhaps is the republic that has existed for the longest time. The ancient Roman Republic was set up around 500 BCE, and it went on to close to 0 AD at that point. Even though it was still called a republic, it wasn't actually a republic. It had turned into basically a monarchy. But yeah, we could say a good 300-400 years it was a republic. But I tend to think that perhaps some of the longest surviving republics are found in Africa. And the Oromo Republic is one of those, I think. Now, the Oromo Republic, of course, has come to be known as the Gadaa system. And this is a system where the society is organized based on the age sets. And then when somebody reaches a certain point in their life, then they get this responsibility of being a leader in the community. It's such a complex system, but it's a system that seems to have worked more or less smoothly. Of course, there is no perfect system. In the ancient Roman Republic, the power was mostly in the Senate with the patricians. And the patricians were basically families that mostly were appointed by Romulus. And then later on, more families were added by other kings who came after Romulus, the founder of Rome, of course. And then there were more families that were added when Rome became a republic. And those families now maintained the power, and all the members of the Senate came from those families. So they were called the patrician families. Now, in the Gadaa system, everybody has a shot at becoming a member of the Senate, we can say, because what you needed to do is to go through from birth, and then you reach a certain age, and you basically qualify to be a senator, we can say, or to hold some political power in the community. And that's huge. That's different. Now, another difference between, we can say, the ancient Roman Republic and the Gadaa system is that in the ancient Roman Republic, senators stayed for life. And in fact, not just for life, like whenever a senator died, a member of their family came and took the seat. So the seat remains in the same family forever. But in the Gadaa system, of course, they have a period of 8 years. After 8 years, your time expires and you need to leave and other people need to come in. And that is very interesting. This system developed in an area where monarchy is like the default form of government. All the tribes, mostly to the north and we can say to the east, preferred monarchy, and in fact they became very prosperous under monarchies. We can talk of the Amhara and the Tigray and the Tigrinya and even Somali to the east. So they more or less adopted monarchies, and that's how they developed and grew. But the Oromo went a different route, and it could be very interesting to know why they took that route, or what informed the Oromo to go to that route of choosing to become a republic instead of becoming a monarch. and how that system developed over the years. Most likely, this is a system that they've had probably for thousands of years. That's why I said some of the longest republics must be in Africa. And in fact, I've said in another video that some of the most robust republics are found in Africa, or were found in Africa before the arrival of the Europeans to colonize the continent. It's just that they were not recognized and they were not given the position they deserved. And they were downplayed, of course, by the Europeans who wrote the history that was forced to become the standard history. And therefore, we never got to appreciate the Gadaa system, for example. And I need to point out that the Gadaa system isn't just among the Oromos. It seems like the Oromos perfected it. They made it to be very complex and can say efficient to some extent. But then when you look at other communities, especially to the southern part of where the Oromo reside, this system seems to have been copied. For example, when you come to Kenya and you look at some of the communities in Kenya and you look at their governance structures, very many communities in Kenya never adopted the monarchy way of governance. There are very few, for example, the Mumia of Western Kenya, of course, they were monarch. And when you go to Uganda, there are more monarchs there, the Buganda Kingdom, Bunyoro, Kitara, and those. But when you come to Kenya, the only one that is kind of like a monarch is the Mumia of Western Kenya. But then when you look, for example, at the Kalenjin and the Maasai, you realize that they were more of republics. They were not monarchs and they were not democracies. They were republics. It's interesting to learn that the Oromo's governance structure is based on age sets, we can say. And it's the same case among the Kalenjin. They have these age sets. You were born and you joined a certain group or age set. But the Oromo one is more robust, I can say, or more fleshed out in that you joined a certain group right from the time you were born. But among the Kalenjin, for example, you joined that group when you were initiated, which would be maybe you are around 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, maybe even 20 years old. So it took longer, and then you never graduated to any other. You just maintained your age set or age group, and then you moved with it throughout your life. But for the Oromos, graduated over time to join different ranks, and then you reached the rank that became of course, the leaders of the community, the representatives and the decision makers and things like that. Now, yeah, so the Oromo built this system, and it will be very interesting to learn when this system came up and what informed its formation and how it evolved over time, and whether it is the Oromo who influenced most of the tribes to the south to adopt a similar system. There is a likelihood that that's what happened, or is it the southern tribes that gave the Oromos this system? We'll never know for sure, but I tend to lean on the side of it's likely the Oromos who picked this system from wherever they picked it from, or they developed it themselves, and then their neighbors kind of like picked it up. Those are my random thoughts.